Okay, we are here on another podcast. This is in celebration for the First Gen week of celebration coming up next week, or this week if you're listening to it this week. So we have another guest. This time we have one of our faculty members, Ryan, and he is going to tell us a little bit here first about himself, and then we'll jump into the questions. So welcome to the podcast, Ryan. Tell us kind of what you do here at K-State, and then sort of how you were First Gen.
Sure. So what I do at K-State, I have multiple roles here at the university. First is I am the Compliance and Conflict Resolution Manager, and that's a fancy title to say that I oversee our campus crime report, our youth protection measures, and our threat management team here on campus. Like basically all things safety and
Sure.
working with different offices around campus. And then added to that, I'm an adjunct in the higher education student affairs program. I teach right this semester. I'm teaching history of higher education.
Okay, all right. So you're definitely not busy at all, right?
No, not at all.
Well, we'll jump into our first gen topic here. What does it mean for you to be first generation?
Well, it means just so much because the struggle that I had every semester. Like I didn't know if I was going to be in school the next semester because I didn't have enough money and didn't know the resources that were available around my campus. But I kind of backing that up. My dad is Vietnam vet, and he was the first person in his family to graduate from high school. And I'm the oldest of my siblings, and even with all my cousins, I'm the first to have graduated from college on my dad's side of the family. And so like my parents always told me when I was a young age, you're going to college, but that's all they told me because they didn't
Sure.
know what else.
Sure.
And for a couple of years I struggled in college because I didn't realize you could tap some of the resources. And about my second year I started getting more involved, and then started realizing that there were people here outside the classroom that could help me there. And so I've always that's what I ended up wanting to do, is help people succeed in college, and that put me where I am today. I've worked in student affairs most of my career, and it's really my goal is anyone that comes onto campus, we welcome them and we figure out how to get them to graduate.
Yeah. You know, no, that's fantastic background, and what you said about sort of that initial struggle. You're now my, I think, 5th or 6th interview today, but that's not been uncommon, where people talk about that it really is overwhelming when you first show up to campus. And then even, and I'm not going to name names here, but one of our higher admins said that he did a little too much of something else and a little bit more, he needed to do a little bit more studying. So,
I know that feeling as well.
you know, but I think too, it's just that intimidation of what, especially a large university, for coming here and getting your feet, and getting a foothold of it, and finding those student organizations, and just how important that is to our first gen students, to all students, but specifically for our first gen students.
Joining one student organization was my launch pad into being in the career I'm at today.
Yeah.
I had different political views than the rest of my campus, and I would write my papers in those views. And one of my professors said, "Do you know there's a club with other people like you?" And then I said, "Oh, really?" So I started going, and then my club, we tried to get money to go on a trip. Well, we needed to ask SGA, so then we're like, let's put some money on SGA. So I ran for SGA senator, and then I became vice president of SGA by my senior year.
Okay.
And I learned the system, and then my advisor, I spent more time, others that spent more time in SGA office and my student org stuff than I did going to class.
Sure.
I mean, I still obviously made it through, but I kind of found my niche on campus, and then things just went and it just kept propelling and moving forward.
That's fantastic. Well, I definitely want to hit too, as well as not only are you first gen, we talk about our first gen students, that that's not it, like most people, that's not their single role that defines them. But another role I know that defines you is being a veteran of the Army, and from what in the work that I do, and we were gonna kind of doing this, I guess, as sort of a dual podcast in a way, because we're similar. I'm also a veteran and also first gen, and my dad also served in Vietnam, so that's another thing we have in common. as far as our work. But I kind of want to just highlight real quickly sort of that veteran side of you and that identity that you share there.
Sure. Now, one difference that I did things backwards a little bit. I went to college first and then enlisted and joined the Army after I got out of college. And I enlisted, I was not an officer. And I did that for student loan repayment. Which,
Okay. Yeah.
And they also, the government doesn't tell you that they tax you that when they pay back your student loans all at once. So that was shocking to me as a E4, not making very much money, paying a large amount of due and income tax.
Yeah.
But I've always just, that's kind of that struggle back and forth every year, whether or not I was going to go back to school. I would, in the summer, end up in a recruiting office, like maybe I should not go finish school and go
Sure.
in the military. So it was just a logical step in service.
Yeah.
And then that's how I ended up in Kansas. I was stationed at Fort Riley.
Mhm.
I met my wife when she was a Kansas State
Yeah.
student, like
Yeah.
the typical, like more of the typical Fort Riley stories, right?
Sure.
And then when I got out, right when I was in graduate school, the new GI Bill came out, and then I
Mhm.
became eligible for that. So I paid for my graduate education using the post 9/11 GI Bill, and it was ripe for research. So I used all the stuff that was coming out with Veteran Services and GI Bill
Mhm.
to do my doctoral research and my dissertation.
Yeah.
And so my dissertation is on retention of veterans using the GI
Yeah.
Bill. And at the same time, we had created at Texas Tech when I was there, the military veteran programs office. So all the stuff I wrote about in my dissertation, I then applied to the office that I work
Mhm.
with that's serving veterans. Because like when you're a veteran, once you look a veteran in the eye, you just have that connection and that
Yeah, for
brotherhood
sure.
or familyhood. And you just
Like first gen in a way, right? I mean, it really is,
Right.
so.
And both first gen and veterans are your hidden populations on campus because there's not, unless they're wearing their Army shirt that I'm
Yeah.
wearing today, they're not
don't know.
visible
Yeah.
and you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's just,
And I think that, sidebarring a bit on that, when you think our veterans, who are, like I said, oftentimes first gen as well, they have that same thing. They come to campus and, they've lived a life in a way, or they've had a career in a way, and having that struggle to fit in. And I'm 26, and it's like I'm in class with 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and not feeling like they're connecting because they just don't have a similar past. They've already done so many different things, and it isn't until, at least some of the ones I've talked to, is that they just go ahead and dive into some of those groups, and so maybe you're all the old guy or the old gal or whatever it may be, old at 26 or something, or 28. But just diving in and sort of putting yourself out there in a way, saying that, I know my identity is this, and this is my background and my past, but I am going to have to, in a way, be confident in who I am and be able to stick myself out there a bit to sort of grow in other ways. So
yeah, exactly. When I was the advisor of the student veterans group at Tech, I would challenge all the veterans, the people that were part of the group, and others, anybody that would listen to me, I guess, and say, you should join one other student organization.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be, and I think first gen, veterans, the only thing we think of when we think of student organization is Greek letter organizations.
Sure.
Because that's what the media shows.
Yeah.
But there's chess clubs, skateboard club,
Yeah.
you name it, and these academic-based clubs
Mhm.
that really could use some leadership
Yeah.
and some
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
and some project management. And so helping them, encouraging them, and then that can catapult them to get internships,
Mhm.
and just, one success story after another.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when we think about K-State, and I'll tell you what, today I've already heard some great stories in how we are doing well at supporting our first-gen students, but is there anything you can think of that there could be another way to support the first-gen folks?
I think just celebrations like this make it a big step, because I think when you're a first gen and you think everyone else is walking around with a K-State sweatshirt, they think, their parents went there, their grandparents
Mhm.
went. But we really have a lot of first
No,
gen.
25%.
And
yeah.
so highlighting them, patting them on the back and saying, I'm one of you. And I think also having this committee, having these things where we have the identity that we can, as staff and faculty, can identify and say, I'm first gen too.
Mhm.
That's just like saying I'm veteran too. You have
Yeah.
that, somebody can come in and say, I've kind of known, I don't know
Yeah.
your struggle, but I've known a struggle.
Yeah.
And it just help being encouraging. I think
Yeah.
that just being open, and the fact that our VP of Student Affairs is first gen,
Sure.
some of our deans have been first.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that have worked hard, and just being a role model and showing people
Mhm.
that hard work can get you places, it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is a sense of pride that this is something that you're doing and accomplishing, and I've talked about it with some of the conversations of setting sort of this different trajectory, you know, in life and things. So I think that I think we're doing good things. I think there's more that can be done. I agree. This first gen week celebration thing is a fantastic way to do that. So, is there anything else that you'd like people to know about, in maybe your interaction with first gen students, or just you in general as far as first gen students go?
Well, I think, you know, it's a hard balance that you don't want to be condescending to people and assuming that they don't know something.
Mm-hmm.
But just explaining, a lot of times explaining why we do what we do, or why you have to do assignment this way, why you use APA and this
Sure.
font, and explaining the kind of the game of education.
Yeah, no, that's
you know,
very
to
much,
people,
yeah.
And say, but if you explain that why, and why we do things a certain way, or why we do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned a lot about that teaching that history of higher ed class, that a lot of grad students that was the first time they ever understood what a land grant was.
Yeah.
So explaining to people day one, like just simple increments, this is who we are, this is why we're a land
Yeah.
grant, this is our mission, and this is how, if you're not a farmer, it doesn't matter, this is still a land grant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just keep just simple things. One of the things that I always did, like when supporting student veterans, is that we in the military use maps or road maps,
Mhm.
and have our checkpoints along the way. Well, creating a graduation roadmap
Yeah,
and checkpoint,
for sure.
and saying, like, check in, like, oh, I did this my first semester. This is the timeline.
Mhm.
This is why I have to do my FAFSA early. This is why I do my FAFSA,
Yeah.
so I can get awarded other scholarships. We're not trying to figure out how much your parents make.
Yeah.
We're not stealing this information. We want to help you in doing that.
No, that makes sense for sure. And I think that's those types of things, being able to navigate or at least have some assistance in navigation, and that us as faculty and staff make sure that when we do hear, oh, who in here's first gen, that just like you would in any classroom out there, kind of making sure that you're identifying and saying, like, I may need to make sure that student has everything that they need to be successful, because again, another thing that I learned today was, again, that first couple of years, and then once they get going, you know, and once they figure things out. So, well, is there any final thoughts or closing thoughts on first gen, or that you'd like to share? So,
I mean, just really, it's just, again, I think sometimes people in first gen, there's a lot of pressure from their family, either to, oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because you're going to take out student loans, or maybe the whole family's like livelihood and reputation's on the line, and that, like, our students themselves, and we need to think about ourselves and taking care of each other, and being successful for our own good,
Yeah.
and our family legacy and all that kind of stuff will translate later.
yeah.
Because I think when I lived in the Southwest, there was a lot of family pressure for people not to go to school because it was taking away income.
Yeah.
And so
That comment came in today as well.
And so when just taking away income from a family is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so helping our students maybe have those conversations
Sure.
of, like, oh, it's okay to take out a student loan if you're
If it-
spending it on tuition, not
Sure.
paying your car payment or
Yeah.
buying TV.
Yeah.
Because we know those people that did that.
Sure.
And so just kind of explaining them that you can send money back and you
Yeah.
don't have to take it all and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Well, I could talk forever, but I know you're a busy person, and we're going to keep moving. So I appreciate you joining us, and appreciate you sharing your story and giving us some insight here.
Well, I appreciate it. This is a great thing, and I hope we do more of it.
Yeah, fantastic.